Hello, YouTube and the internet at large. My name is Jesse Pohlman. I'm a writer from Long Island, New York. And for my birthday in October, I asked my friends and fans to send in questions for a Q&A that I wanted to do as part of a promotional campaign for my next book, the conclusion of my Pillars of the Kingdom trilogy, which is coming out on December 20th, 2018 on Amazon's Kindle. Before the new release, I'm putting out a second edition of the second novel in the series, The Search for the Four, which I'm launching on December 5th, which is around the same time this video is going live. I just want to thank everyone who watches in advance. I've gone through the questions, tried to put them in a sensible order, and I hope that I answer them well, help new writers become better, and make this first upload in a long time worth your time. Thank you. So my first question is from Cecilia Ivy Marie Price. She happens to be my cover artist. She's fantastic. You can find her at Artistic Chaos on Instagram and Twitter. She asked me, how did I get started with writing? Because I guess you have to start at the start. I began as a tiny nooblet in a text-based role-playing game called Dragon's Gate, and then I graduated to the pure narcotic that was AOL chat room role-playing. If you know the name writing, you know what I meant. I know that the teenage me spent a lot of time in not the best health. I was indoors, so I connected with other people through the internet, and many of these people I'm still friends with to this day. Some of them have asked these questions, including Cecilia in a way. Anyway, we went on together to create a whole bunch of just worlds, right? That's what we did. My friends and I, we liked Legos. We would just use words like Legos, come up with characters, have competing ideas, have discussions, decide how things turned out. These days, some of us are actors, some of us are game store owners, and I think that's fantastic because it's great to see so many people that I care about really live out and live their dreams. And I guess that's part of what I'm doing this for too, right? And I guess we're all just trying. So my second question comes from Justine Kingdon. She also asked when I decided I wanted to write, but she also wanted to know where my stories come from and how often my art imitates my life. So I know I touched on your first and second questions already, and I know you know what I was talking about firsthand. You recommended Mercedes Lackey's books to me, and that was a huge change in my life. I'm forever grateful for that. I think the book I'm most connected to, in terms of my experience, has been Protostar and Automatic Apocalypse. I wrote it when my father was seriously ill. He was dealing with complications of liver failure. So I would go between hospital stays, lugging my laptop along, typing out whatever I needed to get out of my system. There's no coincidence that the protagonist of that series, Lahira Ocean, she spends a significant chunk of her time in the second book in a hospital bed, reliving her experiences as to how she got there. I don't know if I'd call that an imitation of my life, although I haven't been perfect either, but it's definitely something that's related to my life, and I think that's hard to miss. So question 3 and question 4 come from Ashlyn Spiro, one of my longtime friends since college. Big fan, always supportive, and they're connected questions. The first one, question 3, is, I am always intrigued at the journey a story takes from an author's mind to the final draft. Do you find yourself to be the type of author who focuses more on sticking to the plot? Or do you let characters in the worlds you create help shape things organically? Well, J.P. Bobain, he's the guy who does creative writing advice? Terrible writing advice. Yes, that's his YouTube channel. He also wrote this book, Aeon Legion. It's about time travel and protecting the flow of time. It's actually pretty interesting so far. He uses the terminology discovery writer versus an architect writer. So a discovery writer would be somebody who kind of comes up with things as they go, whereas an architect is someone who builds things up. And I'm somewhere in the middle. If I have a particular bend to a way a character arc is supposed to develop, then yeah, I'm predisposed to railroading it a little bit. Sometimes I'm guilty. But on the other hand, I tend to only write 1 or 2 chapters ahead anyway. I keep large notebooks, or not really large notebooks, they're more like this. And I'm only 1 or 2 chapters ahead, so I don't always know where I'm going except for major plot points. I hope that helps. So Ashlyn's follow-up question was, if I allow my characters to drive events in my work, have they ever caused a complete deviation from my original plot? And if so, what was the most expected, or unexpected rather, way? This is one of those notebooks I was talking about. These are some of my notes for the original Physics Incarnate, which is kind of where I'm going with this question. It's hard to think of a specific example of a thing like this because of the way I structure things in my head, but I would have to go with Physics Incarnate. That series has really been character more than plot driven. It's really an example of when I had a skeleton set up and I said, all right, these are the particular points that I want to hit. I've been stuck on the final scene, the last scene or chapter, whatever you want to call it, because it's probably like almost an epilogue. I've been stuck on writing that for over a year now because I want the story to end with a détente. There's a final scene. The characters are supposed to meet up and square away their differences, but some of them hate each other so much or have such strong moral quandaries with what's going on that they might not get along. They might just as easily choose peace as war. Andrew and Garrett are major threats, and Erica Hall is the president of the United States by the end of this book. Actually, by the start of the book, it's not really a spoiler. We knew it was coming, and she's an empath. She controls people's emotions. We know what she does from Physics Reincarnate. So, there could just be an all-out war between two or more sides of this meeting that it'd still be a better fight than the MCU Civil War. But hey, I don't know what they're doing with Netflix. I don't know. No. Question 5 from Rebecca Howes, my Canadian friend. Sorry about the package you didn't receive. How do you keep the universe and character backstories alive in your head? Is it like another place you go when you write, or is it just this active knowledge you have? It's a little bit of both. I use these pens. I teach all my tutoring students to use different colored ink to try to write down different threads of importance and thought. I don't have a specific system. I don't even stick to one myself. Here is just another page from another notebook with the current Protostar book I'm working on. And as you can see, it's multicolored. It's done in a way so that when I see a particular color being used for a particular thing, I can kind of pick up the meaning. Red will typically be headers. That helps. But I think this question has to be addressed in 2 different phases. When I'm writing, I'm often working off of visual images I have. Stuff that I'll actually speak dialogue out loud. I'm a little sheepish to admit it, but I'll actually talk out a scene with myself using relevant gestures, kind of like I'm doing with my hands right now. But sometimes I'm very much a minimalist. When I'm asked what a character looks like, a lot of times I won't have a good answer to that. I'll just be like, oh, they're blonde, or I guess they have a certain hairstyle. But unless it's really significant, I let people fill it in. I was trained in a minimalist way when I was at college. I don't really know why I've stuck with it, but an area I need to improve on, and it's in keeping with the idea of notes, is I really need to do a better job of writing down key plot points that I didn't already think of. A lot of times I'm digging through previous books, trying to come up with little details so that I can remember this particular thing that was said in a conversation. But, as retcon prone as I can be, I'd say sometimes it leads to me feeling like, especially if I put a book down for a while, it'll feel like I've changed actors, kind of like swapping James Rhodes and Iron Man sort of deal. And I think Don Cheadle does a pretty good job, honestly, his roadie. Question number 6 from Juan Peralta. How do you describe dialogue between characters without constantly resorting to the words, then so-and-so said, in similar phrases? Well, my official naysayer is asking an excellent technical question that a young writer should actually spend some time poring over. How do you avoid unhealthy repetition? It is a useful literary tool sometimes, but it's easy to get it wrong. Your characters might repeat something they've said over and over again and establish a cadence or a means of talking. But when you're narrating, you might want to look at something called the thesaurus. It's a very advanced tool. We have the internet now, so they're online, and it contains a bunch of synonyms. I'm a little snarky here, but I'm also serious. Don't hesitate to consult the thesaurus if you're not sure about ways to expand your diction. It's really important, your word choice. And instead of character X said and character Y responded, mix it up. What tone does your character use? Are they snarky? Maybe character X is quippy or quips instead. Maybe character Y is injured, so they grunt a response. It's a way to add a little more information to the context of a scene, as well as to just, is my body language, am I here? Am I nervous, or am I laid back and relaxed? It's the sort of thing that you as a writer have to convey to your audience, much as I have to hopefully convey something useful to you in this video. Question 7 comes from Anthony Dawson. He asks, what are your favorite science fiction and fantasy novels, respectively? This is a great question coming from one of my oldest friends who helped get me into science fiction fantasy, and in this particular Dragonlance. You might recognize this book. It's safe up here in New York if you ever need it. It's science fiction and fantasy are two different subcategories of just like imaginative fiction, I guess you could say. I don't believe in universal classifications, or at least I don't always believe they're useful. So to say they're the same thing is a little inaccurate. My favorite science fiction novel, which actually isn't too far fetched, is Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. I strongly recommend it, and I connected way too much to the protagonist. I actually did a dystopian review episode of the book, which is the first in the Mad Adam trilogy, and I'll link to that in the description. But warning, I filmed that not terribly long after Hurricane Sandy, so I don't have anything like a studio anyway, but it's even less of one. As far as fantasy novels go, though, for a favorite, I have to sort of pick the Vaniel trilogy that Mercedes Lackey did as part of Valdemar. The books are Magic's Pawn, Magic's Promise, and Magic's Price. I picked them up, as I mentioned earlier, at Justine's recommendation, and I found myself really identifying with Vaniel's confusion about who he is, who he loves. This is my excuse to talk about this stuff, right? Okay, good. I always drew a contrast between the two super mages of Dragonlance and Valdemar, Raistlin Majere versus Vaniel Ashgaron. Both are mages, and both suffer from a history of social rejection based on who they are. Raistlin's skinny and weak, and he's outclassed in every way, seemingly by his twin brother Caramon. Pretty sure he's a twin, 99% sure. Whereas Vaniel, he turns out he becomes homosexual. He finds out that's a thing that you can be because that's been kept from him. But it's interesting because Raistlin embraces his darker feelings. Vaniel embraces light. Raistlin has redeeming qualities like a love for people who are social outcasts, and Vaniel's experience helps him. He becomes interested in helping others discover who they are. When we were young, we could talk about this sort of thing for ages. Raistlin's probably stronger, for what that's worth. He's taken down a god. I don't think Vaniel has any equivalent feats, but that doesn't make them better characters, you know. That's just the way it is. Stories aren't about power, they're about how endearing the characters are. And I did find I had a little more in common with Vaniel, and I think that's just the way it is for me. But everyone's got different mileage, and what you enjoy is always awesome to you, and it should be. This is the part of the video where I meant to say that Dragonlance in particular really deserves its own updated anime. I know there was a cartoon with Kiefer Sutherland in it, but either an anime or at least a graphic novel, it really deserves something. A movie, a really good high-quality thing. That would be amazing to me. I think that's, following on George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones, I think that's a really easy selling point at this time. Question 8 comes from Matthew Alisi, one of my favorite role-playing writers. He was a contributor to the Nexus thing that we did. Who was your favorite Super Saiyan, or is your favorite Super Saiyan? And, Dragon Ball. I don't think I want to focus on who my favorite Super Saiyan is, because Super Saiyan is just a Saiyan, and it's Vegeta. But instead I want to pick a particular transformation that hits the right tones for what becoming a Super Saiyan is supposed to mean, where you're overcome by emotions and just this idea of power flowing through you. And there's two candidates. There's really only two. There's the original, which is when Krillin gets killed by Frieza and Goku transforms into a Super Saiyan. Cool. But over the years, I've really come to appreciate the only other candidate that's really on this list, which is Gohan becoming Super Saiyan 2. I think that Goku's transformation comes from anger as well as loss, but Gohan's comes from this weird place of desperation. Goku is born a fighter. He's a Saiyan. He loves to fight. That's his thing. Gohan isn't. He's just not. I really loved how the Z storyline seems to build up, at least until the end of the Cell games, to Gohan taking over the mantle of the world's protector, which he does, but then he isn't. But that's what makes him not a cutout of Goku. If he was just a younger Goku and you get to relive the youthful Dragon Ball experience, it wouldn't have been as good. With that said, props to my main man Ten Shinhan for being awesome as always, even if he had a really just terrible character arc in Super. I mean, they did him dirty. Question 9 from Scott Burns. Have you ever considered creating a website to voice political opinions? Not only have I considered it, I actually had one for a while. I ultimately didn't find success with it, but I would try again under the right circumstances. I think part of the reason why it failed is that I had to do everything from writing to tech stuff for other people who might want to write or contribute, and I'm just not tech savvy enough. I tried using a WordPress front end. It didn't really work. I'm using Squarespace now for my personal website, but that's just, I don't have everything working the way I'd like yet. But with that said, I do occasionally post articles on Daily Coasts or on my own website, and I've even had a few things I've written published by The Hill, so you can feel free to check that out at your own leisure. Question number 10 comes from Chance Stevens. Have you ever considered running for office? My buddy with the battle axe piggybacks a question off of the last one. I think that everyone who's read anything about history or politics has looked at a person they don't like and their policies and thought to themselves, well, who couldn't do better? I've thought of it. I'm definitely not ready to succeed at that kind of endeavor, though. I think there's a lot I have to learn. I have an opinion, I have a vision, I have ideas that I think are worth being out there. And I try to share it with you through fiction and through journalism, and I guess for now that's just how you're going to have to settle for it. I can't tell you how many takes I did just to answer this question when my cat snuck upstairs. Possible. Hello, Ophelia. How do you like that box? Did mommy let you upstairs? Look at the policies and actions of person A or B, or my cat in this instance, and say to themselves, could I do a better job? And the answer is, I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't think I'm quite ready. I think there's a lot for me to learn, and I think it's being put to the test right now. However, all right, so that's 10 questions with me. Thank you very much, everyone who contributed. I really do appreciate it a great deal. It means a lot to have supportive friends, and if you feel like this gave you an insight into who I am, or maybe you learned a thing or two about writing from how I'm doing things, or you have some suggestions on things I could do better, I'm all ears. I'm going to be as engaged as possible in the comment section or wherever you happen to find this. Again, just to reiterate, the book is Pillars of the Kingdom. The second and third book, they're going to be out on Amazon and I'm going to check my facts real fast. It's sort of thing you should try to do, even though everyone can do better at that, including myself. Yeah, the next book is coming out. The second book is coming out on Kindle today, December 5th, 2018. After this video goes live, I have a lot of editing to do. And December 20th, 2018, Pillars of the Kingdom, Volume 3, conclusion of my first trilogy. Guys, I can't tell you how thrilled I am. If you enjoyed this, if this is the sort of thing you'd like to see more often, let me know. Maybe I'll do another vlog. Maybe I'll do like a how the year is shaping up for next year sort of thing later on when I have a little more time. Thank you all again. Blessed be, best wishes. Take care.